spicy category now, fellas. Ceiling. Curtis, who's your number one man for this category?
My number one man, and probably all of your number one man as well, is DK Metcalf. Huge ceiling for me. Has all the physical attributes to be an elite receiver. Showed it last year. He's tall, he's quick, he's strong. He's got good hands in him. He was racking up points last year relative to being a rookie. And I can only see him collecting more this year. And obviously the Seahawks are a powerhouse of the NFL, and DK this year I think is going to be a crucial part of that. And so huge ceiling on him, because he could end up being he could potentially be their wide receiver one, and be collecting plenty of points and plenty of receptions this year as a result.
Yeah, Pilch, do you like DK?
Yep. He's definitely got a high ceiling. I've got him slightly lower than Lockett, but he's definitely the ceiling pick out of the two.
Yeah, he's 100% got a high ceiling. The only thing that concerns me a little bit with him is he's very hyped, so his ADP is actually not that, there's not much value in it. He's going at 22 at the moment, and last year he finished the whole season in 41st. So 22, I'll be impressed if he is in the top 22 this season, to be honest. But yeah, high scoring team. He's just a beast, really. Don't really need to say much more. Curtis said it all. But yeah, he's an obvious one. Another guy who I think is an obvious one, AJ Brown.
Yeah, huge on him.
He in total last year he was 30th, but in the second half he was 8th. So Marcus Mariota was dogging him basically, and then Tanners came in and took a liking to him. Once again, he's ADP 16, so not ridiculous value in the pick, but I think he can definitely be a top 15 wide receiver. It was his rookie year last year, so it's his second season, so natural progression there. The only maybe question mark with AJ Brown is that, the whole Tennessee team really is that you could question whether it was just a fluky 6 weeks. But I think Tannehill, like I keep saying, he's a limited quarterback. So I think AJ Brown will continuously be his main target. And then they'll obviously run it up with Derrick Henry. He's a big dude, AJ Brown, so he's a scoring threat. His downfield threat as well. He scored a couple big touchdowns. I think I remember one that was 70 yards or something. So I really like AJ Brown. Pilch?
Yeah, I love AJ Brown as well. And he's pretty much in a Devontae Adams type scenario now. Corey Davis has just had a season-ending injury, so he is the only weapon they've got in the passing game. And his yards after the carry numbers were massive, as you touched on.
You had him in 15th, mate. That's nice.
He's actually my 14 now.
Oh,
so yeah, I love him. Another one for me is another rookie from last season, Hollywood Brown. Firstly, he's the only weapon on the Ravens team in the passing game, and they're literally
Mark Andrews. Show some respect.
Sorry, only wide receiver, and they're arguably the best offense in the entire NFL. Last season, as a rookie, he only played 50% snaps because he was a rookie. This season, that's going to be 70s, 80s, and the breakout is just set to occur, and he's in an unreal scenario. So he could honestly go huge, and huge touchdown potential too.
Yeah. Once again, I keep saying this, but my concern with him is his ADP is 28. So I would be personally shocked if he finished above 28.
It's getting higher and higher.
Yeah. Last year he finished 49th, and the second half of the year he was 60th. So I'll be honest, I've got him in my avoid section just because I think he's a little bit overrated for what he's going to bring to your team, but he's definitely someone with a huge ceiling. Curtis, do you rate the Hollywood Brown call, or are you not backing it?
I don't know, he's a bit hit and miss for me, just because obviously Baltimore are going to be great. But I don't know, I'm a bit concerned that, he was injured part of last year, to be honest, so I don't know. Is it his second year this year, I think?
Yeah.
So Yeah, I feel like that there's potential there for him to rack up points, but I don't think I would draft him. I think I would sit him on the waivers, bit like Watkins last year. Let him have a week or two in the waivers and see how that production is, and then maybe pick him up and chuck him on your bench.
Yeah, mate, he's not going to be on the waivers. But
Sorry, his ADP is 28, so you'll be lucky.
did I say he was
Who knows, boys? Who knows?
Did I say he was the first receiver off? I'm doing a Curtis College argument here, but he was the first receiver off the board in that draft, and that's the draft with Metcalf and all them. So he's clearly got the talent to
Metcalf, AJ Brown.
Yeah, Metcalf would have been first though. He was injured the whole of that year.
Yeah, but he wasn't.
All right. Yeah, so Marquis Brown, like, he is the definition of ceiling. So I don't really know why I don't have him in there. But for me, it's probably just one that I don't want to get sucked into taking on draft night. Curtis, who else have you got in the ceiling section?
Ridley, I have in my ceiling section, which I know he was in our top 15. So I know you guys probably won't be copying, but I feel like he's got lots of potential this year to really increase his fantasy scoring. Last year the last 2 years he obviously he's 30 in the league this year. He's been an upward trajectory. Sorry. And I can only see it being the same this year. They've really bolstered their offense, Atlanta. They've really tried to make sure there's a bit more of a spread, which should hopefully open up the floor a bit more for Julio Jones and Ridley. And so I think we might see Ridley and Julio have a bit more production and receptions. But I also think that they might actually rely on Ridley a bit more this year, just because now he's got a bit more experience in him. They don't have to solely rely on Julio to, kind of carry that offense through to the end zone. But I feel like he really has a high ceiling to pull out plenty of TDs and plenty of fantasy points this year.
Yeah, I back that call as well. This is one, I'm just going to throw it out there, boys. What are we thinking? Odell Beckham. I've got him in the ceiling section, but he could just as easily be in the avoid section for me. He finished last year 32nd, but in 2018 he was 7th. He's a bit of a star of the league. However, the thing that puts me off with him is ADP is 12, and for me, I don't know if he's a wide receiver 2, let alone I don't know if he's worthy of the 12th man off the board. So for me, he's equally ceiling and avoid for those two reasons. But yeah, I could definitely see him bouncing back this year and being a top 20 wide receiver. But the thing that concerns me is they've got Jarvis Landry, Beckham, and Njoku, Hunt, Chubb, and Hooper. I don't really know if you can, I think it will be shared around too much for any of them except Chubb to be absolute beasts. I think that there's going to be a very large spread there. So that's another thing that worries me. But Curtis, what do you think of Beckham? Would you have him in a void or do you back him in?
I back him in highly. I think if I remember my wide receiver rankings, I think I actually might have had him 10th.
You had him at 11th.
11th. So yeah. I actually I think there's a huge ceiling for him this year to where they rely on him as the genuine wide receiver 1 and Landry as a wide receiver 2. But in saying that, you're right. There's also a big avoid / flaw with him because he could be an absolute dud again, where he's taken as a wide receiver 1 or a high wide receiver 2, and he doesn't have the production purely because their offense is stacked. But in the end, I think it's all going to rely on Mayfield and whether Mayfield has a good season or not. Because if Mayfield has a good season, you'd expect Landry and Njoku and Odell to have good seasons as well. But we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, Pilch, what do you think of Beckham?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously got the ceiling because of what he's done in the past, but he's in my avoid category just because he's just going way too high for me, for the reasons that you stated before. Too much competition.
All right, Pilch. Who else are you bringing to the table?
There's
so many for this one.
We were touching on the Houston lads before before we got on. Will Fuller. I'm not necessarily high on Will Fuller. I just think he is pretty much the definition of a ceiling. I mean, we've seen him chuck up 57 points in one game, and now Hopkins is gone. So that's 150 targets ready to be spread around that offense. So, I mean, if he stays fit, he could cop a lot of those and go big, but he's also extremely risky. So I'm only taking him if I've got some solid wide receivers already in my team.
I think he's an awesome bench option though. For him, the main thing's health though. Like last year, he was legit going into every game questionable. His ADP is 34, so I don't think that's too high. I think it's just on the borderline of maybe leave it. But if you've got your two wide receivers and maybe a feasible flex option, then I think Fuller's not a bad fourth wide receiver to put into your side. I know, Curtis, you have different opinions, but I've also got Fuller in my ceiling. And another Houston boy I've got in my ceiling, I've got Brandon Cooks. Once again, I probably wouldn't go near him. He's got an ADP of 35, and he's just such an unknown quantity at this stage. Like probably another guy I wouldn't go for unless it was on my bench. But in 2018, he was the 18th best wide receiver. So that was a different team, but he was dealing with Cup and Woods for target. Well, not Cup that year really because he did his ACL, but he was dealing with those fellas for targets. And now he's moving to Houston once again. There's going to be targets spread around, but in terms of pedigree, he's probably the number one man out of the four. Definitely above Stills, definitely above Cobb, and then Fuller and him are completely different types of wide receivers. So who knows? He could bounce back. He could turn into Hopkins for Watson. He could, just pump out 15, 16 a game. So I think he's a spicy little option, especially for the bench, but I don't have too much faith in him. But Curtis, why are you not too keen on the Houston fellas?
Yeah, I had both Fuller and Cook in my voice section. And Fuller, well, both of them I found, I had Cook part of last year. And for both of them, they're just highly inconsistent. Like you'll have games where they'll whip their high 20s, but they're gonna have some games where they're gonna whip out 10. And frankly, if when you're in fantasy, I feel like you're really looking for someone who can be consistent and just give you some consistency through week in week out in terms of points. And yeah, they might be great for something that for like a week in, maybe off the waivers. If they're on the waivers, I doubt they will be. But you're right, they could be a good bench option. But yeah, I think both of you said it. That they're also someone you probably just wouldn't want to draft just because you just don't know what you're going to get, and you wouldn't want to be put in a situation where they're your wide receiver two because of an injury to someone else, and you're having someone who's whipping out 10 or 7 1 week because they're just inconsistent. But also because I think they've got three-headed wide receiver core now.
Maybe even 4.
Yeah, so I mean the production's going to be really spread around between them, so it just adds the inconsistency that's going to plague their wide receivers, I think.
Yeah, there's rumors on the street. I've put my ear next to the wall, but apparently Kenny Stills might be getting traded before the season starts. So I read an article saying like 10 people most likely be traded, and he was in there. I think just given the situation, it'll probably see him as the wide receiver 4, and he's probably a little bit too good for that. Well, maybe not too good, but like no one wants to just rot in the wide receiver 4 position for any team. So that could also spice up Fuller and Cooks. But yeah, I 100% agree with you that point. If your starter gets injured, that's actually a very good point. I didn't really think of that, to be honest. Pilch, who else are you bringing to the ceiling table?
Well, AJ Brown was my main man, so yeah. I'm all out of the ones I've gone into depth for. But I mean, just blokes. It's been a common theme, but blokes going into their second or third year, with that sort of upside where they could turn into a beast.
Any rookies that fancy you, Pilch? Or are you just avoiding all rookies?
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk is one because of the Deebo Samuel injury. He'll probably be their wide receiver 1. So he's definitely got a lot of upside. But I'm not sure if he might be available on the waivers. So you could wait and see with those sort of blokes. But he's probably the main one for upside for me.
Yeah, I was reading this morning. Apparently, they're both injured, but they're both expected to play week 1. But Deebo Samuel's missed the whole preseason camp, so even if he does play, it might be only a couple snaps or something. Curtis, anyone else you want to bring up?
Well, obviously, AB, bit of a gag, but if he
his
does have,
ADP is 60,
if
so
he just
he's legit getting picked up.
Mate, if he just manages to somehow get picked up by a team, which is just not going to happen, but if he does, he's probably the biggest ceiling out of everyone on the list, just because he's an out-and-out bowler, but he's a psycho. He's a psycho as well. So you wouldn't want to pick him up, but you'd be keeping your eyes peeled just in case he gets picked up on waivers or just as a free agent or something. But I don't know. I don't even know if the NFL would let him back in. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't. I wouldn't even touch him in the draft. So and then just some random rookies that I feel like have got potential high ceiling, just like kind of DK Metcalf, where you would just have him on a bench or just pick him up on a waiver for a week just because they might have huge production one week. But I had Pittman for the Colts. I know you boys don't know maybe too much about him, but I back him hugely. I think he was great out of USC, and I feel like he's going to be great in the NFL as well. Ayuk was another one I had, who you mentioned, Pilch. And then I also had Justin Jefferson at the Vikings. I feel like he kind of fills that void that Diggs left, and he actually might take some of the kind of production that Diggs had and maybe substitute that nicely. So I feel like he could be another one with a huge ceiling.
Yeah, I can't lie. I think every rookie's in my void, to be honest. Just
Oh,
thinking
you wouldn't
about
draft any, yeah.
Thinking about the top guys, I think they all have flawed situations at the moment. You got Ruggs, he's playing with not a great. Well, Ruggs' specialty is that he's rapid, so he's going to be a downfield target. Well, his QB only throws at 3 yards, so there's a genuine issue there. Jerry Judy, I don't mind Jerry Judy's situation, but I just don't think Drew Lock's gonna be pumping out enough yards for Judy as a wide receiver too to be benefiting from it. Who else are we dealing with? Jefferson, I've heard, well, we talked about this last podcast, but apparently he's actually the wide receiver 3 behind their 7th round pick. So that's someone else who I'm a bit worried about. I guess Pittman's probably the main guy I'd keep an eye on, but most of the others I'm not too keen on. CD Lamb, yeah, he might score a few points, but at the end of the day, he's behind 2 pretty top tier wide receivers in Gallup and Cooper. So I wouldn't be too keen on him either. Jalen Ayuk as well. I don't know. Oh, Jalen Reagor. He's actually probably up there.
I'm high on him. He could be their wide receiver 1 because you got Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. We don't really know what they're going to bring. I mean, they're fossils at this point. They haven't really been good, elite for a while now. So he could take the mantle.
I was just thinking a couple ones just now. What about who's the Seahawks bloke who they picked up from New England, who was an absolute bowler? He's physical attribute. I can't remember his name, but he could have a huge ceiling.
Is his name.
And Watkins, I feel like could have a huge ceiling actually. Just last year when I was just thinking he whipped up 50-something points round 1, and he had another game where it was high 40s. So he's got a huge ceiling.
A flex option maybe.
Yeah.
When they play a bad team.
I think Watkins is their wide receiver 3 now. But I mean, McCole Hardman will be there.
That's
true.
Boys, I've got a few names to rattle off here for the ceiling. So first up, Deebo Samuel. I know he's missed training camp, might miss week 1, but second year player, second half of last year, he was 16th. So I like him, and he's being picked up at position 36. So I think there's some value in that pick. Stephon Diggs, I don't know. He could be ceiling, he could be a void. He's going to a new situation. He's being picked up at ADP 26, so I don't know if that's value there, but he's been a top 10 wide receiver in the past. He was 10th in 2018, despite Thielen balling out that year. So yeah, I'm pretty wary of Diggs, but I think he could also be pretty awesome for them. He could be their downfield target. They might look to score a lot more this year. Josh Allen might rush a few less TDs and might try and throw a few more. Emmanuel Sanders, someone else, he's going to New Orleans. He's probably just, I don't know, he's been a top 20 wide receiver in the past. He's been picked up at ADP 45, so he could just be some bench fodder there with a bit of upside. T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's a tough one. Like a lot of the guys we're mentioning here, he's got a very big injury past, but apparently he's looking all right this preseason. Once again, though, we don't know if he'll play much, but he came 13th in 2018. When he played last year, he wasn't bad. He was 34th on average, but his ADP is 27, so I'd probably steer clear of that one. And then a few pods here. Deshaun Jackson. As we said, he is a fossil, but he averages 17.4 yards per reception for his career, which only 5 people averaged more than that per reception in last season, and he's done it over like a 12-year career. His 40-yard time is 4.35, so he's a rapid downfield threat. He averages 1 touchdown every 10 receptions, so he's basically going to be averaging 1 every 2. Well, you would say that he has been doing that over his career, and he's had 3 1,000+ yard seasons in his last 7. So we didn't see much of him last year. He only played 3 games, but I think he's definitely someone to watch out for if he stays fit. He could come out of nowhere, and his ADP is 59. So for me, he's a great bench option. AJ Green, another guy, ADP is 31, but he's been a top 10 wide receiver in the past. He's a legendary guy. So he could be one to watch. I don't know if he's going to start round 1 though, because I think he's been battling injury as always. And then 3 absolute pods, but Josh Reynolds, Los Angeles Rams, he's been bumped up from the practice squad basically to take Brandon Cook's spot as the wide receiver 3. He could be someone if the Rams are pumping out 2018 numbers. McCole Hardman, I think, has a high ceiling, pretty low floor, but as you said, he's looking to be their wide receiver number 2. He's absolutely rapid. Kansas are going to score a lot of points, so there could be some value in that. And then Brashard Perryman. He's ADP 62. He looks like he's going to be the New York Jets wide receiver 2. And last year he was playing at Tampa, so a wide receiver friendly offense. But in the second half of last season, he actually averaged 14.7, putting him 21st. So he shows that he has some high scoring potential. And if he's ADP 62, I don't know why you wouldn't just put a cheeky bench option on him. So yeah, that's it for my ceiling. Sorry for naming half the NFL there, but
Queensland, it's a miracle! Oh yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli, Aguero! Crowd cheers. Here's Siddle.